Okay, so in today's video, I'm going to show you how I make my little collage landscapes. I've been having a lot of fun lately with watercolor collages. I've been doing a lot of floral arrangements with them lately, and I love them. But I wanted to branch off and go back to what I used to do, several months ago, was my little landscapes. And I decided to incorporate the collages into my landscapes. So here I got started. Well, first of all, let me tell you what I've got. I've got my watercolor paper. I've got my Princeton brushes here. I'll let you know what size I'm using as I'm going along. And I've got my Winsor Newton watercolors and my water and my paper towel. All right. Oh, and I'm also going to be pulling in a little bit of my Tombow and my Arteza watercolor brush pens to do a little something in a minute that I'm going to show you. All right, so I did get started and I put on my first layer of my background for my landscape. So what I go ahead and I do is I put several hills in there, like 3 or 4 or sometimes even 5 hills, depending on how far up on my page I want to go. And then I'll do my sky. The rest I will just leave blank. Normally I go in and I paint my trees and my houses and my flowers. But like I said, I wanted to make this a collage because I really like the look of a collage. It's kind of like very folk art, very whimsical art, and that's what I'm really attracted to. So we're gonna go ahead and make one of those today. So I did go ahead and I placed my blue, my yellow, my orange, and then a light wash of blue for the sky. But I'm gonna go ahead and deepen up my colors. I just wanted to get that first layer done off video, so the video is not that long. I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna pull in my, actually this is a Grumbacher 12. And I'm going to pull in my blue again. Let's see, which blue did I do? I think it was this one. And I'm just going to deepen up my tones a little bit. I don't have that much water on my brush because this is the second layer. And I want it to be a little bit more textured. So I kind of even dry brush it down here just to give a little bit of texture towards the bottom of the hill. And then I might go ahead and deepen that up again. Let's see if I want to just darken. Ooh, yeah, look at that. Just darken that color up a little bit more. Just be careful when you're going on your little edge here. It's okay if the colors mix together because it will be wet on wet. And all the bleeding that this hill does to this hill to this hill, totally fine with me. If you don't like all that bleeding from one color to another, go ahead and just wait for it to dry or use your heat tool and just dry the hill before you go on to the next hill. All right, so that is one. Let's go ahead and pick up our, I believe this is my yellow ochre. Just gonna deepen that up a little bit. Oop, I got a little hair on there. Now they might start bleeding, which is fine, but I'm not using that much water. Actually, I'm going to take this off for now. A little bit more water. I want it to be a little bit lighter towards the bottom of the hill and a little bit darker as the hill goes further away. All right, and let's pick up this one. I think this is my vermilion. Just deepen it up a little bit. All right. And then my sky, I think maybe I'll deepen up the blue on my sky a little bit too. Let's see. That's not the blue I wanted. Let's see. I think this is my cerulean. Just gonna deepen up a little bit over here. More towards the top. Add a little bit more water. If you want some clouds, just leave a little bit of white space or maybe more of a wash so it's not as a deep blue. Just add a little bit more water. All right, I think that looks good. All right, so I'm gonna let this dry on its own because I'm gonna show you how I make all my little pieces for my collage. So we're gonna put this aside and I'm gonna pick up, I did start already, but I wanted to show you my process. So for all the little houses that I do in my collage, I went ahead and I just made little houses, very generic, not that many windows, not that many doors. Some don't even have any windows or doors. I just like it to be very simple, and this is just a little bit of a pop of a black and white. I'm kind of known for black and white in my paintings. I always put a little bit of black and white in there, or at least most of my paintings. So in these collages, or in these landscapes, I should say, I always pop a little bit of white and black in my landscape by the house. Everything else is very colorful, but the house is always a pop of black and white. So I'm just going to show you, I left a couple blank. I'm just going to show you how I do those. All right, so I'm taking my Tombow, and Tombow doesn't have names, they just have numbers. So this is N25. And I just quickly sketch these out with a pencil. It's like a no-brainer. They're just very, very, very generic, very boxy little houses. I don't want anything complicated because I don't want it taking away from my painting. I just wanted add a little bit of a black and white pop in my painting. All right, so that's really all I do. You know what? Let's go ahead and pop in a little window in this one, just so you can see. So some of my houses I have facing to the right, some of my houses I have facing to the left, like this one and this one, just to show you. So one would be facing this way. Just depends on which mountain you're putting it on, or which hill you're putting it on. Are you putting it on the left hill, or are you putting it on the right hill? So I just wanted a couple going in different directions. I'm gonna take my size 4. I'm just gonna add a little bit of water, let my watercolor marker bleed and do its thing. Take a little bit off my brush here, dab it off on my paper towel. I just want some lights and darks in this roof. So I'm gonna go ahead and just take some off while it's still wet. Before it really starts soaking into that paper, you can lift a little bit of it. Once it really starts soaking into that paper and you leave it on there for a while, it's harder to get this watercolor marker off. I'm gonna go ahead and put some shadows on my little house here. Just drag down the color I already have on my paper. I'm not adding any more marker. I'm just using the marker I have already on my paper. If you activate it, it just, oops, I just dropped that. If you reactivate the watercolor, it should start blending nicely for you. Pull some of that down, and then if it's too much, what you could do is you could take a little bit of a paper towel. Let's say you got a little bit too much water on your brush like I did. Just take a paper towel and see how that lightens it up really nicely. You want to do that before it really starts to dry on your paper. Add a little shadow over here. And then once it dries, you can see if you need to add more water, if you need to add a little bit more of the marker. And then what I like to do is I like to come down and just give it a ground. That way I can cut it wherever I want. So if I want to make the house a little bit shorter, I can cut it up. If I want to make it a little bit longer and taller, I've always got that ground there to play with. All right. I'm going to leave that alone for now and let it do its little thing. All right, and then let's go into this little house. All right, so this one here, I'm going to take my Arteza, and this one is called Night Sky Blue. So you will see me using Arteza and Tombow watercolor brush pens on this channel. Those are the two brands that I use the most. The Tombow is more of a marker where the tip is very hard. You can't really move the tip around. The Arteza, I've showed this before, the Arteza tip, you can really, it's flexible. You can use it like a brush. It does go on a little bit more grainy. It doesn't give you as much pigment right away like the Tombow does. The Tombow goes on really nice and dark, like a regular marker. This one here is a little bit more of a lighter, grainy, actually I wanted to leave, oh, it's okay. I'll make a roof like this. I didn't mean to put that line there, but that's okay. That's what it will end up looking like. It gives you a little bit more of a grainy look, a little bit more of like a regular brush. And then you have to mix it around with your water. and a regular brush. Let's see. I'm gonna go in, still my number 4, just water, and I'm gonna start moving that paint around. Now this one's got a little bit more hint of a blue to it, a bluish purple, which I love. It's more of like a Payne's gray. And I like that actually better than the black, but sometimes it just depends on what my paintings look like. Sometimes I like the black and white. Sometimes I like more of the bluish hint in there. Just depends on what painting I'm incorporating these into. All right. Now that one there, I'm gonna have to add another little layer. I'm gonna let it dry completely and do its thing, but I'm probably gonna add another layer to that. All right, I'm gonna bring in a little bit of that blue up here now too. So I'm gonna take my Arteza and I'm gonna bring, it's pretty dry, I'm gonna bring my Arteza up here now and just add a little bit of that blue tone to this house. Just water. I went a little bit out of the box here, so I'm gonna just kind of get my paper towel, dab it off before it starts to really dry. And bring a little bit more down this way. I wanted just a little bit more. I really like that bluish tone with the Arteza. All right. Pretty dry. I'm going to go in with another layer, darken up my darks. I'm going to bring down a little bit more of that shade. Give it a little bit of a ground, depending on how far down I go when I cut this. And I think I'm going to add a little bit of black. Now I'm going to take my Tombow, add a little black to this door and this window. And actually, maybe I'll do a little bit darker on the rough line. I've said this on my channel before. I've got 3 dogs, and they're always playing. So you will definitely hear them on this channel. I apologize. But, all right. Okay, so we're gonna put that aside. So I just wanted to kind of show you, this is what it looks like, a sheet of like little houses going every which way, some with doors, some with windows, some with nothing, all different sizes from larger to small. And I haven't done any on this page, but sometimes I even do really tiny ones, like if it's on a hill way in the back. So that's one. Then I wanted to show you some trees that I have done. So then I go ahead and I put trees on a page. I did cut some out already. Let's get those. I did cut some out already. So sometimes I do very large trees, and this is pretty much the same size as that, so we'll get rid of that. But sometimes I do very large trees, and then sometimes I do very small trees, depending in where in my landscape that I want it. If something's a little bit more in the foreground or if something's a little bit more in the background, it would be a little bit smaller. But this page here, I did all pretty much the same size. I'm gonna do a couple small ones just to show you how I did this. All right, so I'm gonna take my size 8, and let's go ahead and we didn't do a green one on this sheet, so let's go ahead and do a green one. I'm gonna pull in my sap green. Oh, and I just wanted to show you, I don't know if you could see this off camera, but I do have just my regular little palette here with all my colors. And what I did was I went ahead and I swatched out my colors and I taped it on the inside here. So I'm not really able to use this one here, all the palette part here. I'm not able really to use that because I taped this on, but I never really use this side anyways. I mostly use this side. And then if you take this out, all your paints, there is another palette under there as well. So, but I find that just working with these is just fine with me because I'll just clean it off when I want to use a different color. So I just wanted to show you that really quick. All right, so I've got my sap green, and I usually start off with, let me hold this down. I usually start off with a little circle, depending on how big you want your tree. And I go about the outline of the circle and then I fill it in a little bit later. I just want that to soak in the paper a little bit so it's a little bit darker on the outside. All right, wash off my brush, dab it off, and then I could just kind of fill it in a little bit. Now, if you have a little bit too much water, lift it up from the bottom up. And then that will leave the bottom part of the tree there a little bit lighter for you, so you can add your trunk in there. All right, so let's go ahead and do another one. I'll do another green one right here. So it's a circle, but it's not a perfect circle. You want it to be very organic and lumpy, kind of like a tree. And I do my outline first, and then I'll go ahead and just fill it in. But usually dragging it up so that I leave the middle part or the bottom part of my tree nice and light. All right, so that's how I do that part. I'm gonna go ahead and dry this. I'll show you the second part. All right, so then once your tree is dry, I go ahead and I use my Dr. P.H. Martin Bleed Proof. Okay, so I usually go ahead and I use a brush that I don't really care about. This is a very generic brush because sometimes the Bleed Proof white doesn't come off your brush too well here, the bristles. So I use a brush I don't really care about, just a generic one. And I'm gonna use a little bit of white on the tip, and then I'm gonna start making some of these little branches going up. Just the tip of the brush. I'm not pressing too hard. And you can make as many branches as you want. We're gonna let that dry. And I'm gonna make my trunk of the tree. Just a line coming down. All right. And then I'm going to take a little bit more of my green, and I just want the top of my tree to be a little bit darker. So I'm going to add a little bit more paint on the top of my tree. You could even bring it down a little bit if you want. So that's pretty much how I make my trees. Then I go ahead and cut that out. All right, so we're going to let that dry. So that's pretty much how I do my trees. Then we're going to cut all those out. All right, and then I wanted to show you, sometimes I do little bushes. So I went ahead on this sheet here, I had cut one out already. I just go ahead and do like little organic shapes, and I usually make one side darker than the other just so there's a highlighted side. And if you want to go ahead and put some detail in these like little branches or whatever, you can do that too. But I just left mine very generic. All right, and then I go ahead and cut them out, of course. All right, so let's go ahead and start cutting out some of these trees. Actually, let's cut the trees out first. So I'll just show you really quickly. I'll just cut out a few. So what I normally do is I just go ahead and cut one of the trees out like that. And then I carefully go around it. And I usually leave a little bit of a white space around my shapes that I'm cutting out. Just because when you put it on the landscape or whatever you're putting it on, it just leaves a little bit of a highlight. And it pops off the page just a little bit more, which I love. Be careful going around your edges. So there's one tree, and I'll go ahead and do one more. Let's do this blue one over here. And I like to make a lot of my shapes. When I'm making trees, I don't just make one tree or two trees for my landscape. I just go ahead and make a whole sheet of them. So then that way, if I want to go ahead and make a couple landscapes, I don't have to sit here and paint them all out over and over again. I've got just plenty of them in this little box that I keep all my cutouts, and I'll show you in a second. I had showed you on my last video when I did my floral cutouts. I showed you then, but I will show you again in a second. So cut that out carefully, and there's another little tree. All right, so I keep them in this cute little box. So I keep them in this cute little box, and I actually put some cutouts on the box too. But I have all my cutouts in here. So I did some roses, I did some daisies, I did some peony, I did organic shapes. I love just organic shapes. You can throw one of those into a floral arrangement or even the landscape if you want. I do a bunch of leaves on pages, and so then I cut them out. So all different flowers, even like these little clover ones. So there's just a whole bunch of different little flowers. Oh, and I've even done, well, here's a little bud if I want a little bud. In strawberries, I've done oranges, lemons, sunflowers. I did some leaves for the fall. I did a tulip. Let's see. Oh, I had done some pumpkins. I'm getting ready for the fall. So I wanted to be ahead of the game, and I did some pumpkins. Let's see, anything else in here? That was a big morning glory that I did. And I don't think I have I think I used all my lemons and my oranges, but I had a bunch of lemons and oranges in here as well. So I just keep them in this little box. So that way, if I'm in the mood to just put together a quick little collage, I don't have to sit there and paint out every little tree. They're already done for me. They're in this box. Sometimes when I'm inspired to create, I don't like to waste my time on different things. I just like things ready to go because when I'm inspired, it's in the moment and I just want to create something. All right, so these are going to go in the box, and I will cut those out. I'll cut the rest of these out at another time, but I just wanted to show you my process of that. All right, and I think my landscape over here that we just did is dry. Let's see. Yeah, by now it's nice and dry. All right, so now's the fun part. I've got all my little cutouts, and I had cut out a bunch of shapes at the beginning, and I'm not sure what I want to use. Let's get my brushes out of the way here. Get my scissors out of the way. All right. So I have a bunch of my little cutouts here, and I like to incorporate a little bit of everything. Flowers, leaves, trees, my little houses that I had cut out. So now it's the whole part is fun, but this is the fun part, just trying to put together this little scenery. It's almost like a little magical land. Let's see, who do I want? I think I want the purple. I think I want the green here and maybe the purple. Let's see how this works out. And then normally I place one of my houses. So this is why I say that I do different size houses. Whether they're a little bit closer, they're bigger. If they're on the far hill, they're a little bit smaller. Let's see, maybe I'll do this one here. And it's fun just to play around. And I like to layer as well. So maybe I'll throw like the tree in back of the house. Let's see. I've got this little tree here. Actually, no, let's put a tree more in the background. Let's see. Or actually, you know what? Maybe this house can go up and I'll bring in a big flower. And then I've got this flower. I've got some leaves. I've got this, I like the orange I'm sticking with the oranges and the blues and the yellows. That's really pretty. I've got another little house, but I think 2 is enough. I don't like to add too many houses. Let's see. I've got all my organic shapes too, and I really like the color of this organic shape. It's got some of the oranges in there and a little bit more of that bright orange and light orange. I might actually pull that in for the sun. Your sun and your moon don't exactly have to look like a sun and moon. You could even throw a flower up in the sky. It doesn't matter. These are your magical little landscapes. I like this leaf because it's got the oranges in there too, rather than just a plain green. Oh, the green looks nice too. But I think I like this one here. It's a little bit of a softer look. Maybe I'll throw that on the behind there. Let's see. This is starting to feel good to me, but you can always play around. Oh, look at, I even did little mushrooms at one point. I did a little page of all sorts of mushrooms. Even throw a mushroom in there if you want to. That's kind of cute. You could throw strawberries in here. You could even make little bugs, like little fireflies or little butterflies, and throw them in here. But I think this is okay for now. I might add a little something more, but let's just go ahead and start gluing down. Okay, so how I go ahead and glue it down is I grab a piece of just Xerox paper. It doesn't really matter, just I just don't want to get my surface all full of glue. I'm going to get all these out of the way. I'm going to push this up, put my paper here, and you're going to want to start with whatever is like behind. So I know these trees are behind this flower, so I'm not going to do this flower first. I want to do the trees first. And most of this is sitting on its own, so that doesn't really matter. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull in, let's pull in our moon. I'm going to go ahead, or sun, doesn't matter if it's the moon or the sun. And I like to use this tacky glue. I find that this glue works really, really awesome. I've been using this glue since college, and that's a long time ago. This glue has really done well for a lot of years, so I'm not going to change my brand of glue. Once you find something you like, you don't need to change it. All right, so I just go ahead and I put the glue on here. I smeared it with my finger. If you're not afraid to get your hands a little dirty, I'm not. And then go ahead and place your moon or sun, and I think I want it shining down. It looks like this way is kind of shining down. And then don't worry about it bleeding off the side or the edge. We can always trim that off in a minute. Or you can trim it before you even put it on. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to go ahead and just take my scissors, shift this around, take my scissors, and cut it off. There. All right, so that is one. And let's see, I think I'm going to go ahead and layer this tree. I think I'll go ahead, actually I'm going to trim the tree because it's a little too long. So just go ahead, take your scissors, trim wherever you want. I think this can go in front of the moon. I think that's kind of pretty. All right, so then go ahead, do the same thing. Take your glue, spread it on, down the stem too, or the trunk. Take your finger, make sure it's everywhere. Go all the way to your edges. All right, pick it up and put it on wherever you want. I think this one's gonna go right there. Hold it for a couple seconds. This glue is really, really great, but you wanna hold it for a couple seconds. And as you're going on and gluing on other pieces, you wanna once in a while just take your hand and just push down your previous pieces, because sometimes they do have the tendency of popping back up. So just keep an eye on everything. You might need to push it down a couple times. Once it dries really well. But it's just a matter of just getting it there to that drying point. All right, I'm going to take these flowers off because these are in front. And I'm going to take my little house, squirt on some glue, spread it on, make sure you got it on all your edges. And I'm going to pop on my little house like that. All right. Okay, let's see. I think I want this tree next because I think the purple tree is going to be in front of this. Go ahead, squirt on a little glue, go down the trunk. And I'm going to glue this one on probably right here. My dogs are definitely playing in the other room. I don't know if you can hear that on video, but it's nice to hear them playing. All right, so then let's see. I'm gonna take this little tree, and where's my house gonna go? My house was gonna go more up here because I think this flower was gonna come in right there. So I just wanna make sure the trunk of this tree is behind this flower. So we'll go like this, and then maybe we'll put the house right there. Actually, I think I want to cut this house so that it's, well, maybe it could be going down the hill like that. You also want to see how the bottom of your house goes. You might have to trim some of the bottom of the house just so it fits nicely on your page. All right, so I know I want this purple tree. Now, if it starts getting really gluey on here, obviously you don't want to lay something in your glue. What I do is I go ahead and I flip my page over. You can always grab a new page, but I usually just flip my page over really quick. That way I'm not wasting paper. Oh, he's acting really funny over there. All right, then I'm gonna go ahead and glue this one. I want this tree to overlap the green tree. Just press everything down again, just to make sure it's held nicely. Once in a while, you're just gonna wanna do that. I love making these little landscapes. They're like little fantasy landscapes. Somewhere that maybe you'd want to visit. All right, and then I think I'm gonna put that little tree there. That's kind of cute like that too. All right, I think I'm gonna do that. And there's no right or wrong of making these little landscapes, or even if you don't do a landscape and you do one of the collages from my other videos. If you haven't seen those, you might want to check that out too. The florals, the floral design ones, those are really, really pretty. And they're beautiful framed. And I can't wait to frame these. I'd like to frame these too. Hold it there for a couple seconds. Make sure everything else is nice and held. Now it's like my house is just kind of going down the hill. It just gives it a little bit more of a whimsical look. You could always have trimmed it and straightened up your house if you wanted to. I just kind of like to give it that little whimsical look, like they're all just following that hill. All right, I'm gonna flip this again, and I'm gonna start gluing on my flowers. Now these are bigger, takes a little bit more glue. Get a good amount on there. I usually start from the middle of my object and then push that glue to the end, to the edge here. That way you know you have good coverage. And let's see, this one I want popping off the page here. So this one here, I'm gonna actually trim the side. Let's see, I want it up like this. So I think I'm gonna trim this going down. That way it's right there. Perfect. Perfect, hold it down. This side here I could always trim up, but this side, since it's the end of the page here, I wasn't able to trim that up. I think I want this one. Do I want this one behind or in front? I could always pull this up and put this behind my sheet too. All right, let's go ahead and get this with glue. And then before that rose dries, you can still pick it up a little bit. If you forgot that you wanted to tuck something into the back, before it completely dries, you can lift it up a little bit. So it is a little bit forgiving. I think I do want this. Just lift it up gently, 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 gently. And I think I want it like that. There we go. Push it back down. If you think that you just pulled up a little bit too much glue, you can always put a little bit more there. Smush it on with your finger and tap it back down. All right. And then my leaf, I wanted my leaf coming up too, but I also thought I wanted that behind my flower. Let's see. Or maybe we could just put it on the side of the flower. It's not that big. Maybe I'll just stick it on like this. Yeah. Like, actually I am gonna lift up my flower just a little bit, just to tuck it in there. Tuck it in there, just like that. All right. That's starting to feel really, really good. I really like this. All right, I'm gonna trim this off, and then I'm not sure if I'm gonna put something in this corner yet. Let's go ahead and trim this. So you could have trimmed this before you even put it on. It doesn't really matter. There. So that's the part I just trimmed off. Okay, that looks really nice. All right, let's see. Do we want to put a bush or something on this side just to cover up this tree a little bit? Or it could be greenery. Maybe a little green to balance off the green on this guy, because right now he's really the only green. I've got a little green on this leaf, but he's the only green one in there. I like to balance things off once in a while, like purple on both sides or yellow on both sides or a little bit of orange. Although there is only that pink there. Maybe just the green. That's pretty too. Or you know what? We've got our green little bushes here that we didn't cut out yet. Let's see, maybe a green bush. Let's go ahead and cut this out and see what it looks like. Again, I'm leaving a little bit of a white border. I like that look. Or maybe even green with green. Well, that's kind of cute too. You know what? I'm going to do just one. That's it. I made the executive decision. I'm just going to do one. I don't want it to be too heavy, but I still feel like that corner needs a little something. All right, put my glue on. And I want to kind of cover up and just blend in a little bit with that tree there. I'm going to go like this. Push it on. Now, if you feel like you need to paint anything else onto your shapes or whatever, if you wanted to do a little bit more veining in the leaf, or if you wanted to add a window to the house, whatever, you could still do that. It doesn't mean that your collage is done right now. You can always keep adding to it. I think what I'm going to do is I feel like the sun needs a couple rays coming down. So I like to just take my scraps and make these thin lines. You can always paint in white with maybe like a Posca marker or or one of your gel pens. You can always do some rays if you want to, but I don't know. I think like it needs, let's see, where should I have more scraps? Here's more scraps. I'm going to stick with the collage look, and I'm going to do these really thin little lines. Just cut them out. Sometimes it's nice just to have a bunch of these on hand already. So even if you wanted to cut a bunch out and just put them into that box I showed you, you could do that as well. And it's just nice to have some rays coming down. So maybe this is the sun, not the moon. And make them long so that you could trim them. It's better to have them long and then you could just go in and trim than be too short. That one can come here, that one can go there, and I think I need one more. Let's see. And then I could do one more and I could break it up so that it's just peeking through. Actually, you know what? This one's longer. Let's do this one here and that one there. Perfect. Oh, you know what? And I do want one on that side as well. I think it'd be nice to have one or two on that side as well. Maybe two. There. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to glue those on and I'm going to trim them up and I'm going to show you what this looks like. There, so I went ahead and I cut out all the little rays from the sun, and it kind of just made my sky fill in a little bit more. Like I said before, you can always add more, but I think I'm going to call this one done. I think it looks really pretty good. So there's the finished landscape. I had a lot of fun making this one. I just wanted to show you another little landscape I made a couple days ago. It's in the same journal. I might keep this journal going with some landscapes. But here it is. And I had a really good time making this one as well. So I think I'm going to continue making these and maybe try and fill up this sketchbook. Thanks for watching. I hope you liked it and learned a little something. And if you did like it, please subscribe to this channel. And you can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram. I hope you have a great day. Bye.